NFTs will evolve outside of art and utility.
Why you need CRM? Why you need this kind of bookkeeping? It's all fun.
I was on a call, a FaceTime call with Gary and Andy, and we were just chatting and laughing. And one, it's a great investment vehicle, just like traditional stocks. And then two, it's a status symbol.
What do you think will happen with NFT in the next 5 years? You know, Dataverse is effectively an engine, like a database on steroids.
Look for ways to make yourself valuable to your peers and to your manager outside of your daily objectives.
Hi, my name is Sarov, and you're watching the Sarov Plus channel. Today, I've got a special guest, Eric Zettersten. He's not only killing it as the head of technology at the Vee Friends, but also has a heart of gold, always giving back to the team, community, and charities he works with. For those who are new to the game, Vee Friends is the NFT collection backed by the legendary one and only Gary Vee, featuring 10,000 plus of unique tokens that, by the way, lit up the market with a staggering $90+ million sale. Is it wild? You're a Microsoft Dynamics developer or just an NFT enthusiast? This episode is for you. Erik will be sharing his insights on the latest advancements in NFT and Veecon events, as well as his tips on how to be a great manager and employee. But what really sets this episode apart is Erik's in-depth knowledge of how Microsoft Dynamics technology is solving real issues in the crypto and NFT industries. By watching this, you're not only learning how to be a better developer, but also stay ahead of the curve on the latest trends in the field. Are you ready? Let's roll! Hi Erik, nice to see you. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Vlad, thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
We are going to have quick fire-off questions. Veecon or Comic-Con?
Veecon, 100%.
So who drew Vee Friends cards?
Gary did all the Vee Friends.
Banking or startups?
Oh gosh, I come from banking, so that's a tough one. But I'm going to say startups. I love startups. I love entrepreneurship.
Work first or family first?
Dude, you know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I know.
Family first, all the way.
That's the introduction of Erik. First question, I'm sure a conversation you have every party you go to, every family gatherings. What's NFT? How NFT works?
You're right. Everyone asks me. And I think depending on who you're talking to, you got to change the answer a little bit. Well, Vlad, NFTs are non-fungible tokens. It's part of the crypto ecosystem, and it represents digital assets and their ownership. I think that's really unique in our world today. When we talk about owning digital assets, let's say you purchase a video from Apple TV or any one of those service providers, you don't necessarily own the video that you purchased. Apple does, and they're kind of associating it to your account. But if Apple were to go away, not saying they will, but if they were, so does your asset. Unlike Apple in that scenario, NFTs represent a distributed or decentralized ownership philosophy, where that token is truly mine, and so long as the infrastructure of the internet is around, I will always be able to access the assets that I own. So NFTs are assets. They're non-fungible in that they don't change. Once they're assigned to me, once they're created, they exist forever.
And what's about the art? Why NFT so popular with art, with celebrities? Why it's a big deal for them?
Well, it's interesting. NFTs represent kind of a payment vehicle, so an investment vehicle, just like traditional stocks. There's that one perspective. Like art today, there's value in buying a Rembrandt. You know, it could be very lucrative for you to hold on to a very nice piece of art and put it on display or sell it or trade it for something special. In the same way, NFTs do the same thing.
I know even Trump has now an NFT, and that's a big deal, was a couple of months ago, but we don't go politics. So why do you think celebrities are so keen on NFTs?
All right, so I'll say the two things, the two parts. One, it's a great investment vehicle, just like traditional stocks. And then two, it's a status symbol. NFTs, Bored Apes, CryptoPunks, Vee Friends, these are status symbols. And as we know, a lot of people like to flex the things they own. Sometimes people buy cars or jewelry, and other people who have a large internet presence want to represent themselves on the internet in a meaningful way. And NFTs are a great status symbol.
The funny thing about NFTs, I was recently walking by flea market here in London, and I saw a couple of pictures, Rolls-Royce, expensive cars, old art, and I thought they're too expensive, like $5, $7 each picture, like small flea markets. How come NFT from Gary Vee in Series 1 could collect $90 million? How come it's so expensive?
This is interesting. The intention wasn't to make it a very expensive asset. That wasn't how we set out to build the project. It was truly that Gary Vaynerchuk himself, he wanted to build a collection, a digital collectible, an IP that represents his many years of thoughts and creativity. And so the money aspect or the cost aspect was not in our purview. It just so happens, though, that everyone wanted it. And because there was such demand, a small supply, the value of these assets skyrocket. And I think that's true for a lot of NFT projects. If there's only 10,255 VeeFriends out there and there's over 1 million people who want them, they got to pay the price if they want to obtain it. And so that's just happenstance, the outcome of supply and demand.
I know in VeeFriends you have 3 different classes, and one of the class is access and 2 more gift and something else. You can probably brag about that you have an NFT from VeeFriends. You also have access to Gary Vee. You can get a gift and you can go to conferences which happen every year. So how important that kind of building the community in NFT world? Can you talk about that more?
Yeah, in the NFT community, access to something outside of just the art, just the graphics, it's typically called utility. Every token, a part of the VeeFriends Series 1 collection, will get you into VeeFriends, the conference. That's the baked in default utility. And then beyond that, we have several other utilities as well. We have the gift goats, which is what you mentioned, and that's a really cool token whereby owning a gift goat, you get 3 special high-valued gifts a year, up to 3 years. And then the other ones are access. So access to Gary directly, whether it's a basketball game, ping pong game, a brunch or breakfast with Gary, or a dinner. Those access ones are special to Gary because that means you get to meet and interact with him and share your thoughts, learn from him if he's got anything he wants to share with you, and pitch ideas to Gary. So that was really an important element of our collection. We wanted to provide value outside of just the cool character art and access to Veecon. We wanted to give people the opportunity to get at Gary.
Can you talk more about Veecon? As far as I understand, you expect to have thousands of people, if not tens of thousands of people joining you. And I think it was last year. Did you have it last year?
We did, yeah.
So can you tell us how did it go and what it means? Because I'm sure it's a big deal.
Oh gosh, when we launched VeeFriends Series 1, the idea of every NFT as a ticket to a conference, and we did so well on the launch, Gary knew right away that Veecon had to be special. It had to be big and special. The first Veecon we had back in May 2022, and it was amazing. It was a huge venue at the US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, and we had thousands, I think 7,000 participants or visitors, and we did everything to support the NFT community there. It wasn't just specifically about VeeFriends. It was an opportunity for us to bring in other NFT projects or other people in the Web3 space to participate in Veecon and share their projects and what they're doing. Beyond that, it was just really fun. We had great music, great food, great events, great after parties. And it was just a lot of fun. And if you're in the NFT space or the Web3 community, Veecon is certainly where you want to go.
What I like about the conferences is actually after parties. I think, conference should be structured another way. It should be parties, some bits of information, then again, parties. I haven't been to your Veecon, but it feels like that's closer to my ideal of conference.
Vlad, let me get you to Veecon. Just let me know and I'll get you there.
People who are watching it, if you want to get a free ticket, just write it here and Erik will sort it out. We touched so much. Gary is actually, his name mentioned a few times. Let's switch and talk. We cannot talk VeeFriends without mentioning him. Not everyone know Gary Vee, but a lot of, especially I think Generation Z. I recently was talking to a guy and just out of blue, he told he's a big fan of Gary Vee. So do you know him personally? Do you work with him personally? Can you talk more about his background and maybe your experience working with him?
Yeah, this is an interesting story. I have known and followed Gary for some time. Probably like the rest of the folks who know Gary, he's a very good coach, entrepreneur coach, has a lot of great online content. And as I was scrolling through Facebook or Instagram at the time, every so often I'd find something from Gary that was inspirational and encouraging to me. So I knew Gary at that capacity. And then years later, one of his employees, Andy Kranak, who's the president of VeeFriends, was tasked to start this VeeFriends project. At the time, it didn't have a name, it was unknown, but Andy knew that he needed support in the technology realm, and he also knew me from our childhood. I grew up with Andy. So Andy reached out to me and he asked me if I would be interested in helping him build the technology infrastructure around supporting this unknown hidden project by Gary Vee. I had no idea what that meant other than, sure, I have some time, I have some free time, I'll help you out, Andy. And next thing I knew, I was on a FaceTime call with Gary Gary and Andy, and we were just chatting and laughing and
Well, that's crazy.
yeah, we're having a good time. He was asking me some technical questions. He had some people on the phone that were kind of interviewing me at the time. And at the end of the call, it was just a great introduction to one another. And ideally, I was a good candidate for helping him build out his project. I do know Gary personally now. We meet regularly. We see each other all the time. He's a great dude. He's just as inspirational as he is on TikTok or Instagram as he is in person. So he's got a great leadership quality about him. He's funny. I don't know if many people know that, but Gary is very funny. He says things that make me laugh to my core, and he's just a good guy. He's very encouraging.
That's probably the best description. People who do not know Gary Vee, they need to Google it. You know the funny thing how I uncovered him? I learned about Gary Vee from his competitor, Neil Patel. Maybe you heard about Neil Patel.
Yeah.
And Neil Patel was saying, oh, well, our business is not as large and we're not doing as good as Gary Vee. I'm saying, who's Gary Vee? And yeah, that's how I found him. So on top of NFT, becoming a VeeFriend community member, what other opportunities exist to join and maybe talk and have the opportunity to talk to Gary Vee?
Gary spends a lot of time in our Discord. You know, when he created this project, he said, I'm going to be spending the next 45 years on VeeFriends. And he truly means that. And he shows that by participating in conversations in Discord all the time. We have this new video platform that the tech team put together so that he can just randomly get together with people who want to have face-to-face time with him. So honestly, the best way to get at Gary, to see him, to ask him questions, to interact with him, is to totally just be a part of Discord, because he's in there all the time. He's in there all the time chatting, and all the time he's posting things about, hey, join me on this platform and we can chat. You know, raise your hand in Discord or send an emoji if you want to hang out real quick. So he's very involved with the community, and it's just the best way to get access to him is to participate in those conversations as much as you can, and he'll give you the opportunity to come up on stage and chat with him.
So what you're saying, it's him actually replying. You know, people with such high profile and celebrity, you would expect they have a lot of assistants covered for him, but you're actually saying it's him.
100% it's Gary, yes.
So that's brilliant advice. If you want to talk to Gary, just go to Discord and just have a couple of good, points, and I'm sure he will pick it up. Yeah, maybe he'll watch this podcast and there is a chance he might be. So we need to be careful what we're saying about him, right?
Sure.
So majority of people who are watching this are Dynamics people, Power Platform people, Microsoft people. They will be puzzled why VeeFriends invited, why you and I talking about it. And obviously the elephant in the room, VeeFriends are using Dynamics and using Microsoft and using Power Platform. And I'm curious, maybe you can explain what led you to consider Microsoft on the bleeding cutting edge blockchain. People think that you have your own toolkit, you have your own ecosystem of tools, and all brands like Microsoft, Apple do not exist there. You have some kind of futuristic from Mars or from Moon vendors. So how come you consider Microsoft, and what kind of drivers you have, and what do you think about it?
When we set out to build the infrastructure around VeeFriends from a technology point of view, it was an obvious choice for me early on that the .NET framework, that C# Microsoft platform would do us well. So when we set out to build the technology infrastructure behind VeeFriends, a lot of the team members at the time were comfortable in Node.js, Python, even some folks of ours had a Java background, but all of us had one thing in common, that was a love for the .NET framework and where it's going, especially with .NET 6 and 7 and 8 coming out soon. So we were excited to use that technology, and just by using .NET, it kind of opens you up to this world of other tools and services that just work well with Microsoft technologies, .NET, etc. And that just so happens to be Dynamics. So when we evolved enough outside of a basic website and a basic user profile, it was quickly identified that we needed to do more with our customer data. We needed to market to them, we needed to talk to them, we needed to track their orders, create leads, prospects, etc. And so it was easy for us to say, okay, we need a solid CRM, but what CRM out there gives us the flexibility and customizations control to facilitate our very custom blockchain technology stack? And so whatever we chose, it had to be highly customizable. And so as we reviewed, we went from Salesforce to HubSpot and then eventually to RapidStart and Dynamics. It was a great conversation you and I had early on, or I think it was Mike, right? We had early on that it was shown to us that we have complete control over the CRM. We could do pretty much whatever we wanted so long as we provide the technology and the specifications for. So Dynamics was a great choice for us. Dataverse in general is just a really cool universe of opportunities for us to connect different pipelines and processes to reduce the amount of engineering work we have and to enable our organization to be effective at marketing and doing some fun stuff and analytics with data. So Dynamic was a good choice for us because it enabled us to do great things with our data without too much heavy lifting on the technology side.
When you think as a customer on the receiving end of technology, it sounds different to what technologists or Dynamics people talk about. I had recently a podcast and talking to a developer, he's well known, Andrew Butenko, and he told, Dataverse is effectively an engine, like a database on steroids. You don't need to build everything from the scratch. You have the complexity taken away and you're addressing the things you need to deal with. And we need to say VeeFriends and your team are highly technology savvy because you're a technology startup working in the blockchain world, work with NFTs. So your guys are really brilliant. And even they decided to deal with the Dataverse because Dataverse actually reduced complexity and no one wants complexity.
Absolutely.
As any technology, it has hiccups. So what things you would reconsider or maybe going back to, whiteboard, doing from scratch and maybe not dealing with the platform? Have you identified those myths or not yet?
They do exist, but I don't think it's unique to Dynamics or Dataverse. I think it's just unique to this world of when there's new technology, how do you move it to an existing technology effectively? And for example, the blockchain, it lives out there in the internet, distributed, decentralized. There's no API per se on the blockchain that gives us the data we need to execute something. There's no such thing as webhooks on the blockchain or triggers of that nature. So that means we have to build this technology in-house. And so the problems or some of the hiccups that we've had, and maybe if I were to go back, I would spend a little more time engineering this with the team, would be data synchronization. When things occur on the blockchain, I need it to be in the CRM right away. And this is a challenging topic because the blockchain moves so fast. I mean, thousands and thousands of transactions, minutes and minutes. So how do we best facilitate getting to close as real time as possible in our CRM with the blockchain? And it's important for our CRM. If I were to pull up your profile, Vlad, in the CRM, I'd want to know your transaction history, what tokens, NFTs that you own. I want to know what you've participated in on the blockchain in regards to the blockchain. And I need to know that up to the minute as fast as possible so that I, as a business, can make decisions to better your experience or to give a better customer experience. So the data synchronization part has the bookkeeping, I should say, keeping one database updated with the next, or in this case, one blockchain connected and synchronized with the CRM is a big challenge, and it's not an easy solve. Today, we have worked with your engineers and your team, and we have a great solution. I would have spent more time ahead of the CRM project facilitating and preparing that stuff so that when we met with your team and when we got involved with Dynamics, there was more synergy, more fluid conversations around here's how to get it, here's how to do it. I think that's probably true with a lot of technology, not just the blockchain.
And now I'm thinking about VeeFriends community watching this. They will ask, so let's say Generation Z folks, but I'm sure you have all generations, but maybe Generation Z is one of the biggest. They will ask, why you need CRM? Why you need this kind of bookkeeping? It's all fun. Why you need backstage? Why you need kind of CIA, not CIA, but why you need look after us? And we probably need to explain, let's imagine you don't have Dataverse, you don't have a CRM even built on your own. What would be alternative? What kind of things people would miss on? We need to explain with not just trying to look after them in a bad way.
We started that way. We started with this anonymous profile. It's okay to be anonymous on the internet type thing. And that's kind of what we wanted to elevate to. We wanted to keep Web3 and not need to gather or participate in anyone's personal information than we needed to. But as it turns out, in order to deliver a great customer experience, in order to deliver access to Gary, in order to deliver VeeCon, a massive conference every year, we need that information to best support our customers and engage them to participate in these events. For example, GiftGoat, we send you gifts. Sometimes it's a sweatshirt, sometimes it's art, sometimes it's a cool gadget. But in order to send that to you, we need your shipping address, right?
You don't want to have your gift sent to somebody else.
And so when we started, that meant for us, because we didn't have a CRM that day, we had to ask all the people who owned GiftGoats, we had to ask for their shipping address every single time because we weren't storing it. We were trying to be truly anonymous. And so this was problematic. People didn't like the friction of having to enter the same data over and over and over again. Now that we have a CRM, though, we can infer who gets what based off the information that they've provided us ahead of time. And it puts them in the driver's seat of their information. By exposing to them and their profile what information we gather, they can update it, change it, mess with it all they want without us engaging them. And that's really important because it reduces friction and ultimately delivers a better experience for the end user.
Yeah, I remember years ago somebody was saying what CRM let people do is create individual experience and more individualized approach. Otherwise, you'll be blasted with the same email, the same gift will be sent to everyone because you're anonymized. And the way data is protected by you, it's how much you share. No one trying to get more than that. And I think when you're 16, 18 years old, you probably think, wait a moment, why are you doing this? It's just fun. VeeFriends is fun, but a lot of back office work needs to be done.
That's true. As a young person, Gen Z, for example, it might not be readily known that this information is important to better your personal experience. Certainly, I hope they tend to learn that.
So for professional developers, can you maybe tell more about your team, what kind of qualifications you have? Because your team are really brilliant. I'm curious to explain maybe for developers who don't know much about Dataverse.
Sure. I'll start with kind of our current stack today. We have roughly 5 to 6 front-end developers, 5 to 6 back-end developers. We have some project managers. And when I say front-end developers, we're a .NET framework, so we do a lot of Razor pages and Blazor, if you're familiar with those frameworks. We also have some React projects. And then our backend, it's all APIs or .NET APIs, and we use a relatively newer, unknown framework. It's the same framework that Halo, the video game Halo, uses. It's called Orleans. And so that's a really interesting technology stack.
Wow.
I'll get into that later maybe. But that's the back end. And then, of course, we use several databases to keep track of our data, whether it's telemetry or analytics or even personal information outside of the CRM. We have several databases there that are hosted in Microsoft Azure. So when we talk about personnel or resources, really, I'm serious about this. We don't necessarily care for your years of experience or your technology skill set. Like I said earlier on, we have a bunch of Java developers, a bunch of Python developers, a bunch of Node.js developers. What it usually comes down to for me as a technology leader or manager, I got to feel warm and fuzzy when I meet you. And I have to feel your entrepreneur spirit as we converse and chat with each other. And this was interesting because when I set out to find a team and build or staff a team for VeeFriends, I asked Gary what I should look for and how should I do this. He ended up saying, Eric, don't worry, let me send out a tweet and let me get you some interest. Because the truth is, Gary's audience is entrepreneurs. They're exactly what I was looking for. The entrepreneur spirit, the go-getter attitude, the hustle attitude. So when he sent out that tweet, I must have received on my personal Twitter account thousands of direct messages, DMs, thousands.
Wow.
And I went through probably 300 or 400 of them before I built out my team, but I had many, many interviews with very eager individuals who wanted to participate in this world of Web3, who wanted to work around Gary. And some folks just weren't even technology people. They just wanted to meet Gary. So I had to, I had to move on past them. But at the end of the day,
Yeah. That's no surprise, I guess.
I know, yeah, right. But at the end of the day, I had to meet folks who were just eager to do big things, put in the hard work, and they showed an entrepreneur and hustle spirit. And then the technology was second to that. So obviously, if they were a C# developer and they were entrepreneurial and they have experience with different technologies that we're going to use or we were using, that put them at the top of the rung. But I hired folks who had zero .NET experience or zero C# experience or zero front-end experience and were not junior per se, but lived in a different world of technology. Maybe they were networking or administration, but they showed me through various examples and through their work with me, they showed me that they were willing and able to learn. And I think I have the best team in the world. I think they're the greatest. When you have hardworking people next to you, it makes your job very fun and effective.
You and I, we didn't manage to work too much like day-to-day, probably a couple of meetings, but I can definitely tell you have a unique way of leadership. And again, that's probably no surprise working in the Gary Vee team. Can you tell what's your way approaching working with people? How do you deal with conflicts? How you reconcile different attitudes? Maybe some clues for maybe managers who are watching us.
One, my strategy is to elevate, encourage, and cultivate. So when you're a technology person, I often want to spend time coding, head down coding, but I am doing the organization a disservice by not enabling my team members to be the best they can be for the organization. To be an effective tech team, everyone's got to participate. I think that's the right answer. And how do you get people to participate? Well, you just got to encourage them. You got to mentor and cultivate the best of their personal sets of skills and capabilities. And that just means spending time with people on a personal level at the job site or at work and helping them realize their best potential. And often that just means having a relationship with everyone on the team. And then if your team is big, you don't necessarily need to spend time with everyone. You just want to spend time with the folks who are then responsible for doing the same for their team. So really just about elevating people to the best of their potential is kind of my leadership style. And that often means having a personal relationship, being fun and open and transparent about everything, and encouraging and coaching and mentoring all along the way.
I remember I was doing a course with some Australian coach, and then the funny thing, somebody was saying that you cannot manage people the same way you manage horses. So what this coach guy was saying, usual stuff, human approach, spend time. And now, a tricky question for you. How do you deal with the person working on your team who is taking too much of your time? You spend a lot of coaching effort and it's still in the same place. And to my surprise, at the end of the session, 80% of questions to that Australian coach guy was pretty much those. So how to deal with people who are not, I wouldn't say coachable, but hard to deal with.
If someone's ultimately just too challenging or not contributing and they're unredeemable, you do have to take the approach of firing fast or letting that person go or moving them out. I know that's probably not a fun answer, but that's the truth. Unfortunately, folks like that or people in that world who aren't contributing, they tend to bring down the value of the rest of the team, and no one wants that. And they might be the best person, most fun and happy and exciting individual, but at the end of the day, if we're not moving the ball downfield, if we're not helping the organization achieve their objectives, we have to do something about it. And as a technology manager, it's my responsibility to make sure that we're moving the ball downfield and meeting our objectives. On the other side, this is a newer revelation. Someone's just not contributing. You're noticing it for the first time. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. You have to make a mental note and identify this individual and walk alongside of them. Really walk alongside of them. Figure out where their needs are being met. Figure out what their aspirations are and coach them through how to best be effective for the organization. That's just the only way to do it. Even if someone's mean or has a bad attitude or is just in conflict with other people all the time, there's usually something deeper going on, something deeper, maybe unknown to the public perspective. And so as the manager, you got to walk alongside and then to take an active voice in their role at the organization. And when I say active voice, I mean, you got to be direct. So I'm getting the impression that you're experiencing a lot of conflict within the team. I'm getting the impression that you're not contributing here as much as I think you should be. Let's talk about that. But if you were to dance around the subject or kind of be fluffy around it, it's not doing anyone any good. So you have to take an active voice in this person's role at the organization. So identify them, walk alongside, learn them, try to understand them, but be very specific and don't shy away from the hard things like saying, hey, I think we could do better in this area or that.
Interesting. You mentioned something which the most challenging, how to identify the point where it's time for conversation. And I think you answered when you say you make an impression. So impression is sufficient. So your impression, maybe you don't have enough evidence yet, is a good starting point for conversation. And I think that a lot of people probably miss on it. Do you have any other advice when it's time for conversation, when it's time for additional effort from manager side?
There's two lanes there. You have your lane, which is your impression, your perspective on your team, your perspective on an individual. And then you have the perspective from the company or from your peers or from other. Both are equally important. I think if you're doing your job well as a technology leader or as a team leader, you kind of have a first line of defense per se. You know exactly what's going on within your team and you can address what you need to. But if someone outside of that first line or front line is saying this individual is not executing as well, you can't have blinders. You got to understand and affirm that individual's belief and walk through what they think is the problem and then develop your own strategy in talking that employee through whatever they need to do. So certainly if your own impression is important, and you should have your own impression because you're close with the team, but also not to have blinders to the rest of the organization or your peers. Take their accounts seriously and focus on what you feel like is the best approach to walk alongside of the employee in question.
I like walk alongside. It could be in the title of book maybe you'll write one day because it actually sounds very catchy. Yeah, it sounds good. But let's do from another perspective. So how to be a good team member, how to deal with maybe a challenging manager, a challenging team. And I'm sure in VeeFriends, all your advices you're going to share now irrelevant because you have brilliant team, good managers, but just in case, So if you're a team member, maybe the most junior team member, how to fit in and deal maybe with challenging manager?
To be a great team member, you got to contribute. That's at the end of the day, the bare minimum is you have to be contributing to the organization objectives. And some of those objectives might come from your immediate manager or from their manager, whatever it is. Your daily routine should start with how can I best help the company, the organization achieve their objectives. So that's part one. Make sure you're contributing. If that's writing code, then you're writing code. If it's code reviews, if it's quality assurance, if it's writing documentation, whatever it is, do the best you can do in that area at the bare minimum. Comma, or step two, would be look for ways to make yourself valuable to your peers and to your manager outside of your daily objectives. So that means participating in helping someone achieve their objectives. That means providing ideas to the organizations and contributing to the overall approach to a problem that you're trying to solve. Having a voice in the direction of the organization or the team will elevate you above your peers and make you very valuable. Even if it's something that the organization doesn't end up going with, having that voice, that opinion positions you to a manager like myself and gives us the perspective that this guy or gal is interested in helping us grow. He's very eager, hungry to help our business do great things. So those are two ways that I think can make you a great employee. When dealing with a bad manager, or maybe you just disagree with teammate or a manager, like managers to their employees or their peers, having an active voice, but being mindful of the words you choose and talking with that individual, sharing your personal perspective. This is kind of like marriage counseling, if you've ever done that before. But what you could do is you could say, I feel that I am given, too many tasks, or I feel the task that you gave me was unobtainable, or I would not do well on it. It makes me feel XYZ. And you share your feelings from your perspective, and you try to quantify or qualify your feelings as best as you can.
Yeah, and what you mentioned about the team membership and leadership, that's actually an advice coming from a person who is leading an advanced technology company and a person who used to work for a bank. Dealing with hard, difficult managers and dealing with more kind of difficult environment, that's coming from experience. I mean, all your advices, it's super valuable for both environments, for startups and maybe old schoolish companies. You mentioned the technology you started using for Hello, and maybe for our technology people, for developers. So what have you found there?
This is fun. For the technology people on the phone, the .NET people on the phone, if you haven't checked out Orleans, please do so. Orleans is a great project. Orleans was created by Microsoft Research Division, so it wasn't truly a product until recently, but it was developed for Xbox Live, specifically Halo when it originally came out with multiplayer. And so the need there was to have a super scalable infrastructure that supported the many telemetry, analytics, and actions and commands that a game like Halo would be processing in multiplayer. Imagine every single footstep a character takes in Halo, that has to be broadcast up to a server and then disseminated amongst all the participating clients or other Xboxes in the game. So that means that your infrastructure has to really be quick, fast, and scale to high demands and a high velocity of data or high volume of data. So Orleans is a great framework to help a developer get there. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. A good analogy for Orleans is, as you know, today there's a lot of serverless offerings in the cloud. You have AWS Lambda, you have Azure Functions, and I think there's others, but those are instances, cloud native instances that you have to spin up and write configuration around and deploy code to. Well, what if Orleans was your own in-house serverless capabilities? And that's kind of how I like to think about it. Every operation you do within your own code is executed in what they call a grain, and silos are what holds the grains, and each grain lives in its own sandbox and is executed and then terminated after a period of time. So it creates this really cool serverless-like capability, but owned and in-house, which gives you a lot of flexibility. So it's a very fun framework, and if you're building highly scalable applications and you have a lot of volume of data coming in, Orleans is a great product, and it's free.
Addressing the issue you had with so many transactions going on in blockchain, and you need to be sure it's reaching your systems fast enough, quick enough. It's almost kind of other way around. So usually with Hello, you broadcasting events, but this time events are broadcasted for you. You need to catch them all in a quick chain. That's very intriguing idea. You run the volunteering, you do a lot of volunteering. Maybe you want to share, and maybe people want to contribute and follow up with you on some volunteering activities you do.
VeeFriends, we are so super happy to encourage our community to participate in local volunteering efforts, whether it's for homeless people or for hungry people, whatever it may be. I encourage you to look local first. If you're interested in the space, if you want to volunteer for technology, if you want to volunteer at the event stuff, join our Discord. Get to know the folks there. Ask me in Discord, ask Gary in Discord how you can help VeeCon, how can you participate. I can assure you that we have opportunities there if you wanted to participate.
Quick, another Blitz, and just have a final perspective for many things. So first question for you, Ethereum or Solana?
Good question. Ethereum.
Discord or WhatsApp?
Discord.
Even personally, I think WhatsApp is still for personal, Discord more for professional.
Discord is just more community oriented and WhatsApp is still more personal. So I'll use WhatsApp for my friends and family, but Discord is more fun. And if I'm doing anything with a large audience, Discord is just better for me. So Discord it is.
So for all Microsoft folks, Azure or AWS?
I'm Azure fan.
Yeah, YouTube or TikTok?
Oh, YouTube.
Twitter or LinkedIn?
Twitter.
And what do you think will happen with NFT in the next 5 years?
NFTs will evolve outside of art and utility, other opportunities in the world, the general world, whether it's, your car lease, your titles, more real world applications will live in NFTs. It might not be called NFTs, but this idea and concept of storing these contracts, these documents in an immutable state on a decentralized infrastructure will become more and more prevalent over time. It might not be JPEGs in the future. It might be music, it might be documents, it might be legal stuff, it might be whatever. But the idea here is that in the future, the concept of NFT will evolve in that everyone will participate in it, whether they think so or not. And that's the way technology should be. You don't even know you're using it.
What do you think we're not talking about, but we should be talking about? And maybe in your case, let's do both NFT and maybe leadership.
Working with Gary, we're still not doing in the general marketplace of leadership. We're still not talking about soft skills as an important element to your career. When often, even today, people think of business leaders as, hard individuals who, work hard and are kind of mean and aggressive and very forward. And I would debate that hard, because soft skills are more important. Your ability to connect with people, your ability to work and be dynamic and flexible with individuals is way more important than your personal desires of being aggressive and business-minded and focused. I think they work hand in hand, but at the very least, in leadership, we need to work on our soft skills. We need to encourage our team members to focus on their personality and their personal growth as individuals. We need to be flexible and kind and have empathy for one another. So I think we're still not talking about that. That's one. And then you said, what's next? Technology? Oh, I don't know. ChatGPT obviously is on everyone's mind. Microsoft announced, I think just a week ago, that it's incorporated into their Bing search engine. I think search engines as we know it will change. And as people who build public-facing websites or community-focused websites, it's in our best interest to evaluate what something like ChatGPT can do for us. Again, the ultimate goal is to reduce friction for our customers and create a better experience, the best experience. And AI has, even through ChatGPT, has proven to do that for so many people already. And that's just chat. I think if we're not thinking about how AI can benefit our business, we're not thinking the right thing.
Yeah, and I would love to talk about that even more, but you have your call in a minute. So thank you so much being on the podcast. I hope it's not the last time. I know we have another one coming in a couple of weeks for a different purpose. So glad talking to you. And how people can find you? Do they need to go to Twitter and use your name and LinkedIn?
Absolutely. First off, Vlad, thanks for having me. This was fun. I felt like I forgot I was in a podcast. I thought we were just talking for a bit, and I think that's how it's supposed to go. So good job. Thanks for having me. You can contact me at Erik@VeeFriends.com if you want to email me. If you want to follow me on socials, my social is just my last name. So @Zettersten on Twitter, Zettersten on LinkedIn, Zettersten on Facebook, or my website, Zettersten.com.
Nice having you, and see you next time.
Thanks, Vlad. Take care.